Welcome back to Dream Harbor, traveler. Tonight, I would like to tell you a story called The Orchard Surveyor and the Bread Shared at Harvest Hearth. The first light of an autumn morning rested gently across rows of apple trees, where pale mist drifted between sturdy trunks and baskets weighted beneath branches heavy with fruit. Every leaf seemed to hold a little glow, and every orchard path invited slow footsteps rather than hurried ones. Come with me for a little while. There was once an orchard surveyor whose work was unlike what many imagined. He carried no grand instruments, nor did he spend his days measuring with stern precision alone. Instead, he wandered quietly among orchards, noting how the trees had grown through the seasons, how the soil welcomed the rain, where sunlight lingered longest, and which paths allowed neighbors to gather most comfortably during the harvest. His notebook held more sketches than numbers. A gentle curve of a branch, the place where robins liked to sing before sunrise. The old pear tree whose roots lifted the earth just enough to make children hop instead of walk. The surveyor believed that every orchard was more than fruit. It was a map of kindness that had been growing for generations. Each autumn, when the leaves turned amber and gold, the village celebrated the harvest hearth. It was a simple tradition. Every household baked bread. Some baked round loaves dusted with flour. Others shaped long, crusty loaves with herbs gathered from quiet gardens. Some folded sweet apples in a soft dough, while others scattered oats across the tops until they looked like fields beneath morning light. No bread was sold. No bread was counted. Instead, every loaf was carried to the village square and shared until every basket was empty. No one remembered exactly when the tradition had begun. That was part of its quiet beauty. Some customs become so deeply loved that they seem to have always existed, like sunrise or birdsong. The orchard surveyor always arrived before everyone else. Not because anyone expected him to, simply because he enjoyed watching the village awaken. The square looked different in those peaceful hours. Tables stood waiting beneath woven cloths. Empty baskets rested beside one another like patient companions. A small oven built from warm stones still held the gentle memory of yesterday's fire. Nothing hurried. Nothing needed to. He would walk around the square once, nodding softly to each familiar corner, then continue toward the orchards beyond the cottages. The apples seemed brighter each morning of harvest week. Perhaps they truly were. Or perhaps gratitude made every color appear richer. As he walked, he paused often. He listened. Wind carried many small stories. Leaves brushing together. Bees finishing their final visits before cooler weather. A distant cart rolling gently along the lane. Some mornings he heard laughter drifting from kitchens where flour dust floated through open windows. Families baking together had a sound unlike anything else. There was always conversation, always pauses, always someone reminding another to taste the dough. The surveyor smiled whenever he heard those familiar rhythms. He rarely interrupted. Listening was part of his work. When the sun climbed a little higher, villagers slowly emerged carrying covered baskets. No one rushed to be first. No one worried about arriving last. Every loaf would find someone. Every table would become full. The surveyor greeted everyone by name. Not loudly, only warmly. He admired crusts browned to different shades. He admired woven baskets repaired many times over. He admired cloths embroidered years before by steady hands that had long since grown older. Nothing needed to be perfect. The tradition welcomed every loaf equally. One year an elderly woman brought bread shaped like autumn leaves. Another year a young child proudly carried a loaf that leaned gently to one side. Everyone admired both with the same smile. Because generosity had never required perfection. After greeting the bakers, the surveyor returned to the orchards for one final walk before the sharing began. His notebook rested beneath his arm. He marked which trees had offered abundant fruit. He noted where a path might be widened before next season. He sketched an old bench beneath a walnut tree that deserved another coat of oil before winter arrived. Small observations, quiet improvements, things that helped tomorrow feel just a little kinder than yesterday. As seasons passed, people often forgot exactly who repaired a gate or cleared a path or planted another young tree. The surveyor liked that. Good work did not always need to be remembered by name. Sometimes it was enough that someone walking years later found an easier path. At midday the village bell rang only once. It was not a loud bell. Its single note floated gently across the orchards like a leaf carried by a patient breeze. Families gathered. Visitors gathered. Travelers passing through happened upon the square and were welcomed without question. There was always room, always another chair, always another slice. The surveyor watched as the first loaf was broken, not cut, broken gently by hand. One piece offered to a neighbor, then another, then another. Soon every pair of hands held warm bread. The aroma drifted softly into the cool autumn air. Fresh grain, roasted herbs, sweet apples, a little honey, warm crust, soft centers still carrying the quiet heat of village ovens. Someone poured warm cider. Someone else arranged apples into wide wooden bowls. Children carried little baskets of pears between tables as though they were delivering precious treasures. No one instructed them. They simply knew. That was how the harvest hearth had always been. The surveyor accepted a piece of bread from the oldest baker in the village. She smiled as she handed it to him. "You spend all year watching the orchards grow." He nodded. "And today," she said gently, "the orchards watch us." He looked toward the rows of trees beyond the square. Golden leaves moved softly together. For just a moment, it almost seemed possible that the trees truly were observing the gathering with quiet contentment. Perhaps they were. The afternoon settled into peaceful conversation. No speeches, no competitions, no ceremonies demanding attention, only sharing. People exchanged recipes as easily as greetings. Someone described a different way to braid dough. Another remembered gathering walnuts with a grandparent many autumns before. The stories drifted through the square like slow-moving clouds. The surveyor listened more than he spoke. He found that every loaf carried its own memory. Some reminded people of childhood kitchens. Others of long walks home through falling leaves. Some tasted of rosemary gathered beside old stone walls. Others carried the sweetness of orchard fruit ripened beneath gentle sunshine. Bread became memory made warm. As afternoon softened toward evening, the surveyor returned once more to the orchards. This had become his own small tradition. He liked seeing the trees after the village had gathered. The orchards seemed quieter then. satisfied somehow. Baskets that had been full in the morning now rested empty beneath branches. Leaves continued their slow dance toward the earth. The surveyor opened his notebook. Instead of measurements, he drew the village square. Tiny tables, many baskets, small circles representing loaves. Little figures gathered together. Above the sketch he wrote only a single sentence. The harvest is complete when everyone has enough. Nothing more needed saying. A breeze turned the page. He let it. The next page remained blank. Blank pages never troubled him. They simply waited. Like orchards waiting through winter. Like gardens beneath snow. Like dreams waiting quietly for night. Years moved gently onward. The surveyor grew older. His notebook became thicker, its pages filled with drawings of branches, pathways, gates, benches, ovens, baskets, cottages, birds, clouds, and countless little observations that most people walked past without noticing. None seemed small to him. Every kindness deserved remembering. Every peaceful place deserved a careful sketch. Every season deserved gratitude. Children who had once carried little baskets now baked their own loaves. The oldest bakers smiled from benches while younger hands tended warm ovens. The surveyor noticed these gentle changes. Not with sadness, only appreciation. Communities, like orchards, grew by sharing sunlight across generations. One especially beautiful autumn evening, after the harvest hearth had quietly ended, he walked farther than usual. Beyond the last orchard stood a meadow where grasses had turned pale gold. The sky glowed softly with the final colors of sunset. He sat upon a weathered stone. The world seemed wonderfully unhurried. A flock of birds crossed overhead without haste. Their wings caught the last light before continuing toward distant trees. The surveyor closed his notebook. For once he did not write. He simply looked. Sometimes the heart remembers without ink. As twilight deepened, lanterns slowly appeared throughout the village. One window, then another, warm points of golden light. From a distance, they resembled stars that had decided to settle among cottages for the evening. The surveyor smiled. He always liked that moment. The day did not end suddenly. It softened, just as autumn softened summer, just as evening softened afternoon. Just as kindness softened ordinary days into treasured memories. He returned along familiar paths. Leaves whispered beneath steady footsteps. The air carried faint traces of bread still cooling upon kitchen shelves. Some families would enjoy another slice before bed. Others would save theirs for tomorrow morning. Either way, generosity lingered longer than any loaf. Seasons continued their quiet turning. Winter would come. Snow would rest among sleeping branches. Spring would awaken tiny blossoms. Summer would fill the orchards with green abundance once more. The surveyor knew every season had its own gentle work. He welcomed them all. When autumn returned, as it always did, so too would the harvest hearth. Bread would again be baked, tables arranged, baskets carried, neighbors welcomed. The tradition would continue without needing grand announcements. Simple rituals often endure because they fit naturally within the heart. Even after many years, visitors arriving during harvest often remarked upon the feeling they found in the village. They struggled to describe it. Some called it warmth. Others called it peace. A few simply smiled without speaking. The surveyor understood. Some places speak most clearly through silence. As night settled more fully, the village became wonderfully still. Only an occasional owl called from distant trees. A single window remained lit here and there. Someone finished washing flour from a wooden bowl. Someone folded a cloth beside the cooling hearth. Someone quietly prepared tomorrow's breakfast. Gentle endings, gentle beginnings. The surveyor rested beside his own small window. His notebook lay closed nearby. Outside, autumn leaves drifted one by one to the earth. There was no need to count them. They knew where to fall. He listened for a while. To the wind, to the trees, to the peaceful breathing of a village content after a day of generous sharing. Nothing more needed to happen. Everything that mattered had already unfolded. The bread had been shared. The orchards had offered their harvest. Neighbors had gathered. Evening had arrived with patient hands. Little by little, the village settled into sleep. And as every quiet story eventually finds its gentle way home, so do we. Beyond the orchards, beyond the cottages, beyond the softly glowing windows. The peaceful tide of Dream Harbor continues its endless, gentle rhythm. Its harbor lights are waiting, just as they always are. I have kept the lantern burning while we wandered among autumn trees and warm ovens. Now I see your own path leading softly back to the quiet shore where travelers arrive between waking and dreaming. The water moves without hurry. The lanterns shimmer upon its surface. The night is kind. Tomorrow, perhaps, another story will find us. Dream Harbor remembers every traveler, even when morning carries the story gently away. So rest now. Let the warmth of shared bread linger like the memory of a peaceful afternoon. Let the orchards fade into soft silhouettes beneath quiet stars. Let every slow breath carry you a little farther toward gentle sleep. I will remain here beside the harbor, where the lantern always glows, waiting to welcome you again. Good night, traveler. Good night.